The stars looked different from the observation deck of the stellar horizon. Captain Deho stood with his forearms crossed behind his back, his blue-scaled skin reflecting the soft lights of the command center. For 9 years, his ship had watched the blue planet called Earth from a safe distance. The humans never knew they were there. "Captain, our scan of the northern region is complete," said Navigator Kibum. Unlike the captain, Kibum had only 2 arms, but his eyes, all 6 of them, could see things others could not. "The humans continue to build in areas that will flood when their climate changes." "They are young," Deho said. His voice made a soft clicking sound between words. "They will learn or they will not survive." The stellar horizon was home to 32 crew members from 12 different alien species. All were part of the Galactic Confederation, a group of space-traveling races that worked together to study new worlds. Earth was special. The humans were growing fast, making new tools and machines every day. Soon, they might reach the stars themselves. In a corner of the bridge, Engineer Taeyong checked readings on a screen. He looked like the humans on the planet below because he was human. 6 months ago, a secret meeting between Earth leaders and the Confederation had led to Taeyong joining the alien crew. He was the first human to serve on a Confederation ship, though most people on Earth didn't know aliens existed yet. "Captain," Taeyong called out, "I'm seeing some strange energy readings from the sun." Deho walked over, his 4 feet making soft sounds on the metal floor. "Strange how, engineer?" "The sun is sending out bursts of energy that our computers didn't predict." Taeyong pointed to waves on the screen. "They're coming right at us." Kibum turned all 6 eyes toward his own screens. "That's not possible. Our systems can predict solar flares 3 weeks before they happen." A loud alarm suddenly filled the bridge. Red lights flashed from every wall. "Shield failure in progress," shouted the ship's computer. "Energy surge detected. All systems compromised." The ship shook. Our crew members fell to the floor. Screens sparked and went dark. Communications Officer Han Na pressed buttons on her panel with her thin, 3-fingered hands. "Captain, our main power is failing. I'm sending an emergency signal to Confederation headquarters." Captain Deho grabbed a rail to stay standing as the ship shook again. "How long until help arrives?" 3 days if they leave immediately," Han Na said. The ship lurched to one side. Through the large windows they could see Earth getting closer. They were falling toward it. "We're caught in the planet's gravity," Kaibum shouted. "Navigation systems are failing." "Everyone to the escape pods," ordered Captain Deho. "This is not a drill. Move now." The crew ran from the bridge toward the escape pods at the back of the ship. In the hallway, Science Officer Juwan fell as the ship shook again. His long, thin body wasn't made for running. Taeyong helped him up. "Go," Taeyong told him. "I'll be right behind you." But instead of following, Taeyong turned and ran back to the bridge. Captain Deho was still there, trying to work the controls with his 4 hands. "Captain, you need to get to an escape pod," Taeyong shouted. "The ship's path will take us directly into a human city," Deho said. "Thousands will die. The navigation controls are locked." Taeyong pushed the captain toward the door. "I can override it manually. Go. Your people need you." "The impact force will kill anyone who stays," Deho said. "No species can survive such a crash." Taeyong smiled sadly. "Then no one will miss a single human. Go, Captain, that's an order." "You cannot give me orders, engineer," Deho said, but he moved toward the door. "A request then," Taeyong said. "Please, save the others." After a moment, Deho nodded and left the bridge. Taeyong turned to the controls. Most screens were dark, but one emergency system still worked. If he could redirect the ship's path just enough, it would miss the town and crash in the forest instead. In the escape pod section, the crew was panicking. Many pods weren't working because of the power failure. They would have to crowd into the few that were still operational. "Where is Engineer Taeyong?" asked Medical Officer Sunmi as she helped others into a pod. "He said he was coming," Juwan replied, ducking his long neck to fit inside. Captain Deho arrived, pushing crew members into pods. Taeyong is redirecting our crash trajectory. He will not be joining us. That's suicide, Security Chief Jinsu said. His normally serious face showed real fear. No one can survive that crash. We must go back for him. There's no time, said Dae-ho. The ship will hit the atmosphere in minutes. On the bridge, Taeyong worked quickly. Sweat ran down his face as he manually rewired systems to connect the emergency power to the directional thrusters. The ship was shaking so hard now that he had to strap himself to the command chair to keep working. Just a little more, he muttered as he connected 2 wires. A small screen lit up, showing controls for the few thrusters that still worked. Yes, he could see Earth filling the view screen now. They were coming in fast, much too fast. He could make out the shapes of mountains and forests. And there, in a valley, was a small town with thousands of people who had no idea what was about to happen. Taeyong fired the thrusters using every bit of remaining power. The ship groaned and slowly, much too slowly, began to change course. Not enough, he said, hitting the controls again. Come on. In the escape pods, the crew watched through small windows as their ship burned through Earth's atmosphere. The heat shield was failing, and parts of the ship were breaking off. He did it, Captain Dae-ho said quietly. The ship's trajectory has changed. It will miss the human settlement. But Taeyong... Sunmi couldn't finish the sentence. The stellar horizon streaked across the sky like a burning arrow. On the bridge, Taeyong pulled emergency straps around himself and braced for impact. The ground was coming up fast. He closed his eyes and thought of Earth, his home. At least he would die on his own planet. Impact in 5 seconds, said the computer's voice, strangely calm. Always wanted to see the forests up close, Taeyong said to himself. The ship hit the ground with a force that would have shattered any normal material. Trees snapped like twigs as the massive vessel carved a deep path through the forest. Metal tore and twisted. Systems exploded. The bridge collapsed around Taeyong as darkness took him. Miles away, the escape pods landed safely in a lake. As the alien crew emerged, they looked toward the distant forest where a huge cloud of smoke rose into the sky. Set up a base camp, ordered Captain Dae-ho. We need to secure the crash site before humans discover it. What about Taeyong? Asked Kibum. Captain Dae-ho's eyes dimmed. No one could survive that crash, not even a human. But he was wrong. 3 days passed. The alien crew had set up a hidden camp near the lake where their escape pods landed. They used special technology to make their camp invisible to human eyes and machines. Captain Dae-ho stood outside his tent looking at the distant smoke that still rose from the crash site. The rescue ship will arrive tonight, said Communications Officer Han Na. She had been sending messages to Confederation headquarters using a small device that had survived the crash. They say we must find and remove all ship parts before human authorities discover them. Agreed, said Dae-ho. We need a search team to go to the crash site immediately. Security Chief Jinsu stepped forward. As a Navorian, he had special skills for tracking and hunting. His skin was dark green, and his eyes could see heat from living things. I will lead the team, Captain. I'm going too, said Medical Officer Sunmi. Unlike most of the crew, she looked almost human, except for the silver patterns on her skin that changed with her emotions. If there's anything left of Taeyong, we should bring him home. Captain Dae-ho nodded slowly. Take Engineer Do-hyun and botanist Yuna as well. Do-hyun can help collect any technology that survived, and Yuna knows earth plants and animals. The team gathered supplies and weapons. Though they weren't planning to hurt any humans, they needed to be careful. If humans discovered them, it could change Earth's future in dangerous ways. Remember, we must stay hidden, Jinsu told the team. Our mission is to find ship parts and whatever remains of Taeyong. No one wanted to say what they were all thinking, that their human friend was surely dead. The crash had been too violent for any living thing to survive. The team started their journey through the forest. Do-hyun carried scanning equipment in his forearms. His 4 eyes blinked in different patterns as he looked at the forest around them. Earth is very wet, he complained as they walked through a small stream. How do humans live with so much water everywhere? They are mostly water themselves, explained Sunmi. Their bodies are about 60% water. They need it to live. Yuna touched plants as they walked, her long fingers changing color to match each leaf. These forests are amazingly diverse, so many different species living together. After walking for hours, they reached the edge of the crash site. What they saw made them stop and stare. The ship had cut a deep path through the forest, at least half a kilometer long. Trees were broken and burned on both sides. Pieces of the ship were scattered everywhere, most too small to recognize. The main body of the ship was crushed like a tin can, twisted and folded in ways that seemed impossible. "By the stars," whispered Jinsu. "The force of impact must have been enormous." "How will we ever clean all this up before humans find it?" asked Do-hyun, his voice shaking. "We focus on the most important parts first," said Sunmi. She took out a small device and began scanning for specific metals and technologies. The engine core, the computer systems, and anything with Confederation markings. "And Taeyong," added Yuna softly. They split up to search different areas, staying in contact through small devices on their wrists. Do-hyun found pieces of the ship's computer system and carefully put them in a special bag that would hide their energy signatures. Yuna discovered that some Earth animals had already made homes in parts of the wreckage. "They adapt so quickly," she said, watching a small bird fly from a nest built in a broken panel. Jinsu searched the area where the bridge should have been, looking for any sign of Taeyong. What he found was a command chair, crushed, but still recognizable, with torn safety straps hanging from it. "Sunmi," he called through his wrist device. "I found where Taeyong would have been during the crash." Sunmi hurried over. Her scanning device beeped faster as she moved it over the chair. "There's blood here," she said. "Human blood, but not enough for—" She didn't finish her sentence, but Jinsu understood. "Not enough blood for someone who had died here. Could animals have taken the body?" he asked. Sunmi shook her head. "There would still be more blood. And look at these straps. They weren't torn in the crash. They were cut." Jinsu's eyes widened. "Are you saying he survived? That's impossible." "I'm saying something strange happened here," Sunmi replied. She moved her scanner in a wide circle around the chair. "Look, there's a trail of blood drops, leading away from the crash." Jinsu followed the trail with his eyes, which could see things others couldn't. "You're right. Small drops heading that way." He pointed toward a dense part of the forest. "We should tell the others," Sunmi said, pressing her wrist device. Soon, all 4 aliens were following the blood trail through the forest. It wasn't easy. The drops were small and far apart. Sometimes they disappeared completely, only to be found again many meters away. "He was moving with purpose," said Jinsu. "Not stumbling or crawling. He was walking." "How could anyone walk after such a crash?" asked Do-hyun. "Even with the safety straps, the force would break bones, damage organs." "Humans are strange creatures," said Sunmi. "Their bodies are both fragile and surprisingly tough." The trail led them to a small stream. There they lost it completely. Jinsu searched both banks but found nothing. "He must have walked through the water to hide his trail," said Yuna. "That's smart." "Why would he hide from us?" asked Do-hyun. "We're his friends." "Maybe he wasn't thinking clearly," suggested Sunmi. "Head injuries can cause confusion." Jinsu looked up at the sky. "It's getting dark. We should make camp and continue in the morning." They found a small clearing and set up their equipment. Special devices created an invisible shield around them that would keep humans away. As night fell, the forest came alive with sounds. Insects, buzzing, animals moving through the trees, a distant owl calling. "Listen," said Yuna suddenly. "Do you hear that?" They all fell silent. At first they heard nothing unusual. Then faintly they caught the sound of something moving through the forest, something large. Jinsu switched his vision to heat sensing. Through the trees about 100 meters away he saw a heat signature. It was human-shaped. "There's someone out there," he whispered. "One person, moving slowly." Taeyong? Asked Sunmi hopefully. Or a human who found the crash site. Warned Dohyun Jinsu signaled for them to be quiet and slowly move toward the heat source. The others followed, careful not to make noise. As they got closer, Jinsu could see the figure more clearly. It was limping, one arm held against its body but definitely walking on two legs. They reached a small clearing. On the other side stood a figure, looking up at the night sky. In the moonlight, they could see it was a man in torn clothes, his face and arms covered in cuts and bruises. "Is that?" began Yuna. The man turned toward them, somehow sensing their presence despite their cloaking technology. His face was swollen, one eye nearly closed from injury, but they all recognized him. "Taeyong," breathed Sunmi. The human smiled through, split lips. "Took you long enough to find me," he said, then collapsed to the ground. Sunmi rushed forward as Taeyong fell. Her medical training took over as she knelt beside him, quickly checking his vital signs with her scanner. "He's alive," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "How is that possible?" Jinsu and the others gathered around. In the soft glow of their emergency lights, they could see just how badly Taeyong was hurt. His face was bruised and cut, his right arm bent at a strange angle. Dark stains of dried blood covered his torn uniform. "We need to get him back to camp," said Sunmi. "I can't treat him properly here." Do-hyun stepped forward. "I'll carry him." With his 4 strong arms, the engineer lifted Taeyong carefully. The human moaned in pain but didn't wake up. As they walked back through the dark forest, Yuna kept looking at Taeyong's face. "I don't understand," she said. "We've studied human physiology. They're not built to withstand such forces. Their bones break easily. Their skin tears. Their organs are unprotected. Yet here he is," said Jinsu. "Not only alive, but able to walk away from the crash and survive in the forest for 3 days. When they reached their hidden camp, Captain Daeho was waiting. His 4 eyes widened when he saw what or who Do-hyun was carrying. "Is that?" he began. "Yes, Captain," said Jinsu. "Engineer Taeyong is alive." The entire camp came alive with activity. Crew members emerged from tents, their faces showing disbelief and joy. Captain Daeho led the way to the medical tent, where they had set up equipment salvaged from the escape pods. Sunmi got to work immediately, placing Taeyong on a bed and connecting monitors to his body. The screens lit up with readings and images of his internal organs. "This is..." She hesitated, looking at the screens. "This is impossible." "What do you see?" asked Captain Daeho. Sunmi pointed to the images. "He has 3 broken ribs. His right arm is fractured in 2 places. There's internal bleeding in his abdomen. His left lung is partially collapsed. He has a severe concussion." "Then how is he alive?" asked Navigator Kaibom, who had joined them in the tent. "That's what I don't understand," said Sunmi. "By all our medical knowledge, he shouldn't be alive, let alone able to walk." As if hearing his name, Taeyong's eyes fluttered open. He looked around, seeming confused at first. Then a small smile crossed his face. "Hey," he said, his voice weak but clear. "You found me." "Taeyong," exclaimed Sunmi. "Don't try to move. You're badly injured." Taeyong tried to sit up anyway, grimacing in pain. "I figured that out on my own, thanks. Feels like I got hit by a bus, or a spaceship." Captain Daeho stepped closer to the bed. "Engineer Taeyong, you have done the impossible. How did you survive the crash?" Taeyong leaned back, too weak to stay sitting up. "The emergency protocols worked, at least partly. The crash chair absorbed some of the impact. When I woke up, I was trapped in what was left of the bridge. Had to cut myself free." "You were conscious after the crash?" asked Sunmi, checking her monitors again. "In and out," Taeyong admitted. "Hurt like hell. Knew I had to get away from the ship, though. Earth authorities would come looking eventually." "But your injuries," insisted Sunmi. "You shouldn't have been able to move at all." Taeyong shrugged, then winced at the pain the movement caused. "Had no choice. Set my arm as best I could. Used pieces of the ship to make a splint. Found some emergency supplies in a storage compartment that hadn't been completely destroyed." The Mao aliens looked at each other in amazement. Jinsu shook his head. Even with all that, the pain alone should have stopped you. Pain can be managed, said Taeyong. Old military trick, compartmentalize it. Focus on survival first, deal with pain later. Is this common among humans? Asked Captain Daeho. Not common, said Taeyong, but not unheard of either. Humans have walked on broken legs to find help. Mothers have lifted cars off their children. We can push our bodies past normal limits when we have to. Sunmi prepared medicines and began treating Taeyong's injuries. The others stepped outside the tent to let her work, still trying to process what they had learned. This changes everything we thought we knew about humans, said Kaibum. Our studies never showed this kind of resilience. Captain Daeho nodded slowly. Perhaps we have been studying the wrong things. Back in the medical tent, Sunmi was carefully binding Taeyong's broken ribs. Her silver skin pattern swirled with concern and fascination. You should have died in that crash, she said bluntly. By any scientific measure, the force was beyond fatal. Taeyong managed a small laugh. Thanks for the vote of confidence. I'm serious, said Sunmi. I need to understand. Your species has no natural armor, no redundant organs, no cellular regeneration abilities. What makes you so durable? Evolution, I guess, said Taeyong. Earth isn't an easy place to live. For most of our history, humans had to survive without technology. We evolved to endure, to keep going when logic says we should stop. As Sunmi worked, Taeyong told her about human history. How early humans would chase animals until they collapsed from exhaustion. How they survived ice ages and plagues. How they crossed oceans in tiny boats. We're stubborn, he explained. It's our best quality and our worst. We don't know when to give up. Outside, the alien crew was preparing for the arrival of the Confederation rescue ship. Captain Daeho had informed headquarters about Taeyong's survival, and scientists on the homeworld were already asking for medical data. Jinsu approached the captain as he checked the landing site preparations. Sir, there's something else. We found at the crash site that you should know about. What is it, Chief? Asked Daeho. The ship's final trajectory, said Jinsu. We analyzed it based on the crash path. Taeyong didn't just redirect it away from the human town. He specifically aimed for a clearing in the forest to minimize the damage. He was thinking that clearly during an emergency? Asked Daeho, surprise evident in his voice. Apparently so, said Jinsu. And there's more. The safety systems on the bridge were completely destroyed before impact. The crash chair's protective field failed. He survived the full force of the crash with no technological protection at all. Captain Daeho was silent for a long moment. I have studied many species across the galaxy, Chief Jinsu. I have seen creatures that can regrow limbs, that can live for 1,000 years, that can breathe fire or turn invisible. But I have never seen anything quite like this. That night, as the camp slept, Sunmi stayed awake to monitor Taeyong. His condition had stabilized, but she was still worried. Human medicine was not her specialty, and she feared she might miss something important. Taeyong slept fitfully, sometimes mumbling words she couldn't understand. Once he sat up suddenly, eyes wide but unseeing. The town? He said urgently. Have to miss the town. It's okay, Sunmi said gently, easing him back down. You saved them. The ship missed the town. Taeyong relaxed and drifted back to sleep. Sunmi watched him, thinking about what she had learned. Humans appeared fragile on the outside, but inside they had a strength that science couldn't fully explain. In the early hours of the morning, lights appeared in the sky. The Confederation rescue ship had arrived. As it landed silently in the clearing, Captain Daeho stood ready to greet his superiors. What he didn't know was that Taeyong's survival was about to change the Confederation's understanding of humans forever, and with it, Earth's place in the galaxy. The Confederation rescue ship was larger than the stellar horizon had been. It landed silently in the forest clearing, its lights dimming as the engines powered down. A ramp extended from its side, and 3 tall figures walked down to meet Captain Daeho, the leader of the rescue team, was Admiral Ju Ri, a high-ranking Confederation official. Unlike Captain Daeho, she had 6 arms and deep purple skin that seemed to absorb light. Her eyes, all 8 of them, moved independently, taking in everything at once. "Captain Daeho," she said, her voice deep and formal. "I am pleased to see you and your crew survived." "Thank you, Admiral," said Daeho with a respectful bow. "We were fortunate that most of our escape pods worked." Admiral Ju Ri looked around at the camp. "Your report mentioned something impossible. A human survivor from the main ship?" "Yes, Admiral," said Daeho. "Engineer Taeyong. He is in our medical tent now." The Admiral's eyes all focused on Daeho at once, showing her surprise. "I must see this for myself." Captain Daeho led the Admiral and her 2 assistants to the medical tent. Inside, Sunmi was still monitoring Taeyong, who was now awake and sitting up despite his injuries. "Admiral on deck," announced Daeho. Taeyong tried to stand, but Sunmi pushed him back down. "You have 3 broken ribs and a fractured arm," she reminded him. "You are not standing for anyone." Admiral Ju Ri moved closer to the bed, all her eyes examining Taeyong with open curiosity. "So it's true," she said. "You survived the crash?" "Just barely," said Taeyong with a weak smile. "But yes." "Impossible," said one of the Admiral's assistants, a scientist named Minho. His body was insect-like, with thin limbs and large compound eyes. The impact force was calculated at 58 times Earth gravity. No known species could survive that. "Apparently humans can," said Sunmi. She showed them her medical scans of Taeyong. "He has serious injuries, but his body is already beginning to heal itself." Minho moved closer to look at the scans. "Fascinating. And you had no special protection? No emergency field generator?" "Nothing," said Taeyong. "Just the crash chair and straps, but those were mostly destroyed in the impact." Admiral Ju Ri turned to Captain Daeho. "This changes our understanding of humans. Our studies have focused on their technology, their social structures, their wars. We classified them as physically weak, but intellectually promising." "We were wrong," said Daeho simply. The Admiral nodded. "Indeed. Minho, I want a complete study of human physiology, not just their bodies, but their minds, what makes them able to function despite serious injuries." "Yes, Admiral," said Minho, his thin fingers already tapping notes on a small device. Taeyong cleared his throat. "Excuse me, but I'm right here. You could just ask me." All the aliens turned to look at him, seeming surprised that he would speak. "Up." "Of course," said Admiral Ju Ri after a moment. "Please enlighten us." Taeyong shifted on the bed, trying to find a comfortable position with his broken ribs. "It's not just our bodies," he began. "It's our minds too. Humans can push through pain and fear when we need to. We can ignore our body's signals to stop." "But why?" asked Minho. "What evolutionary advantage does that serve?" "Survival," said Taeyong simply. "Earth is dangerous, always has been. We evolved as both predator and prey. We're not the strongest or fastest, so we had to be the most determined." As Taeyong spoke, more of the alien crew gathered around to listen. They had all been curious about their human crew member, but few had really understood him until now. "Our earliest ancestors hunted by chasing animals until they collapsed from exhaustion," Taeyong continued. "We can't run as fast as a deer or an antelope, but we can run longer. We don't give up." "This persistence," said Admiral Ju Ri, "is it common to all humans?" "To varying degrees," Taeyong replied. "Some more than others. But the capacity is there in all of us. Mothers have lifted cars to save their children. People with serious injuries have walked miles to find help. Explorers have survived in frozen wastelands or burning deserts." As Taeyong spoke, Sunmi was running more scans. "Look at this," she said suddenly, pointing to her screen. "His brain is releasing chemicals that block pain signals and increase alertness." "Adrenaline," explained Taeyong. "It kicks in when we're in danger, gives us a burst of strength and energy, helps us ignore pain." Minho was fascinated. A natural emergency system, he said. Ingenious. Admiral Ju-ri had been quiet, thinking. Now she turned to Captain Dae-ho. The Confederation Council must hear about this. It changes our classification of Earth and humans. How? So, Admiral? Asked Dae-ho. We classified them as a Class 3 species developing with potential, she explained. But this resilience, this determination, it is a quality we have not properly valued. Outside the tent, Jin-soo was showing the rescue team's security chief the progress they had made in collecting pieces of the crashed ship. They had gathered much of the advanced technology, but large pieces of the hull remained scattered through the forest. We need at least 3 days to clean up everything, Jin-soo was saying. Some pieces are buried deep in the ground. The security chief, a massive being named Dong-wook with rock-like skin, looked worried. Human authorities will find this place soon. Their machines have likely detected the crash already. Actually, said Engineer Do-hyun, joining the conversation, I've been monitoring their communications. They detected something, but their satellites show only a meteor impact. Our ship's outer hull was designed to appear as natural material. To primitive scans. Dong-wook seemed relieved. Good. We should still work quickly. Back in the medical tent, Tae-yong was growing tired. His brief energy had faded, and the pain of his injuries was becoming harder to ignore. Sun-mi noticed immediately. He needs rest, she told the others. Human healing requires periods of deep sleep. Admiral Ju-ri nodded. Of course. We will continue this discussion later. She turned to leave, but then looked back at Tae-yong. Engineer, there is one more question I must ask. Why did you stay on the ship? You knew the crash would likely be fatal. Tae-yong was quiet for a moment. The ship was headed for a town, he said finally. Thousands of people would have died. You sacrificed yourself for strangers, said the Admiral. It wasn't a question. I guess so, said Tae-yong. Didn't really think about it that way. Just knew I couldn't let it happen if I could prevent it. After the Admiral and others left, Sun-mi gave Tae-yong medicine to help him sleep. As he drifted off, she sat beside him, watching his face relax as the pain eased. Outside, Admiral Ju-ri gathered with Captain Dae-ho and her senior staff to discuss what they had learned. I have studied 1,000 worlds and species, said the Admiral. I have seen beings that can change their shape, that can live for centuries, that can survive in space without protection. But I have never seen this particular combination of physical fragility and mental strength. What does it mean for our approach to Earth? Asked Captain Dae-ho. Everything, replied the Admiral. We have been watching them, waiting for their technology to advance enough to join the Confederation. But perhaps they already have something equally valuable to offer. That night, as the alien rescue team worked to recover pieces of the crashed ship, an unexpected visitor arrived at their camp. A tall, thin alien with skin that shifted colors like flowing water stepped off a small transport ship. This was Director Kang-dae, head of the Confederation's contact division responsible for managing relationships with new species. I came as soon as I received your report, Director Kang-dae told Admiral Ju-ri. A human survived that crash and saved others at risk to himself? Yes, Director, confirmed the Admiral. See for yourself. Together they went to the medical tent where Tae-yong was now sleeping peacefully. Director Kang-dae studied him for a long time, his skin shifting through shades of blue and green as he thought. We have misjudged this species, he said finally. Their value is not in their technology or their resources. It is in their spirit. What do you recommend? Asked Admiral Ju-ri. Acceleration, said the director. The plan for contact with Earth was set for 50 years from now. I believe we should move it forward. Significantly forward. The implications of this decision would echo across the galaxy, all because one human had done the impossible. He had survived. 2 weeks later, Tae-yong sat in a private room aboard the Confederation ship Celestial Voyager. His broken bones were healing well thanks to advanced alien medicine. The worst of his cuts and bruises had faded. He could walk short distances. Now, though, his ribs still hurt when he laughed. The door slid open, and Captain Dae-ho entered. The captain had visited every day since they left Earth. The crash site had been cleaned up completely, with no trace left behind for humans to find. "How are you feeling today, Taeyong?" asked Daeho. "Better," said Taeyong. "Sunmi says I'm healing faster than expected." "Humans continue to surprise us," said Daeho, his mandibles clicking in what Taeyong had learned was a smile. "The Confederation Council has been in meetings for days discussing what we learned from you." "From me?" Taeyong was confused. "I didn't do anything special." "That's where you're wrong," said a new voice. Director Kang Dae entered the room, his skin shifting through colors as he moved. "You've changed how we see your entire species." Taeyong tried to stand to greet the important visitor, but Kang Dae waved him back down. "Please don't strain yourself. I come with news that I think you'll want to hear sitting down anyway." Taeyong settled back on his bed. "What news?" "The Confederation Council has voted," said Kang Dae. "Earth's classification has been changed from Class 3 to Class 2. "What does that mean?" asked Taeyong. Captain Daeho explained, "Class 3 species are watched from a distance. We study them but avoid any contact. Class 2 species are considered candidates for eventual membership in the Confederation." Taeyong's eyes widened. "You mean, yes?" said Kang Dae. "We're going to make official contact with Earth much sooner than originally planned. Perhaps within 5 years instead of 50. "That's... wow," said Taeyong, running a hand through his hair. "That's a big change. What made the council decide this?" Kang Dae's skin swirled with patterns of blue and gold. "You did. Or rather, what you represent about humanity." The door opened again, and more visitors entered. Admiral Ju Ri, Sun Mi, Jinsu, and several Confederation scientists Taeyong had met during his recovery. "We've been studying humans for decades," said one scientist, a tall being named He Young with transparent skin that showed her inner organs. "But we've been measuring the wrong things. We valued your technology, your energy production, your space exploration capabilities. We failed to account for your remarkable adaptability, resilience, and determination," continued Minho, his insect-like limbs moving excitedly. "These qualities are as valuable as any technology." Taeyong looked around at all the alien faces watching him. "So my surviving the crash convinced you that humans are special somehow?" "Not just surviving," said Jinsu. "You stayed behind on a doomed ship to save others. You redirected it away from populated areas, knowing you would likely die. Then, despite terrible injuries, you treated yourself and survived in the wilderness until we found you." "Any of my people would have done the same," said Taeyong. "Exactly," said Admiral Ju Ri. "That's what makes humans remarkable. This combination of physical endurance and moral courage appears to be common in your species." "In our 1,000 years of interstellar exploration," added Kang Dae, "we've encountered species with regenerative abilities, telepathic powers, extraordinary strength, but none with your particular combination of physical adaptability and psychological resilience." Sunmi stepped forward. "I've been sharing my medical findings with the Confederation's biological research team. Your body's ability to keep functioning despite severe trauma is unique. Most species would shut down to preserve energy. Humans push through." Taeyong wasn't sure what to say. He had never thought of humans as special. On Earth, people often talked about how fragile human life was, how easily it could be lost. "The Council believes," continued Kang Dae, "that humans will bring something unique to the Confederation when the time comes. A perspective and ability that our other member species lack." "And what's that?" asked Taeyong. "The ability to endure," said Captain Daeho. "To continue when logic says you should stop. To sacrifice for others without calculation." "We call it human spirit," suggested Sunmi, "though I still don't fully understand it." Taeyong smiled. "That makes 2 of us." Admiral Ju Ri stepped forward. "There is one more thing, Engineer Taeyong. The Council has voted to offer you a permanent position as Earth's first official representative to the Confederation. Once you've fully recovered, of course." Taeyong was stunned. "Me? But I'm just an engineer. I'm not a diplomat or a politician. You are exactly what we need, said Kangde firmly. Someone who understands both worlds and who embodies the qualities we most respect in humans. Later that day, when his visitors had left, Taeyong stood by the large window in his room, looking out at the stars. The ship was traveling through a part of space he had never seen before, heading to the Confederation headquarters for his formal introduction to the Council. Sunmi entered quietly, coming to stand beside him. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said. "Looking at the stars. Incredible," agreed Taeyong. "I never imagined I'd see this. Are you nervous about representing Earth?" Taeyong considered the question. "Yes," he admitted. "It's a huge responsibility, but also excited. There's so much we can learn from each other." Sunmi's skin patterns swirled thoughtfully. "You know, there's a saying spreading through the Confederation fleet now, as tough as a human, it's meant as a compliment." Taeyong laughed, then winced and held his ribs. "That's a strange thing to be known for." "It's more than just physical toughness," said Sunmi. "It's your whole approach to life. You face impossible situations and somehow find a way through them." "That's just being human," said Taeyong. "Exactly," said Sunmi. "And that's what makes you remarkable." As they stood watching the stars, Navigator Kibum joined them. "We will reach Confederation headquarters in 3 days," he informed them. "Many species are eager to meet you, Taeyong. News of the human who survived the impossible has spread quickly." "I hope I don't disappoint them," said Taeyong. "You won't," said Kibum confidently. "Just be human. That's all they want to see." Later that night, Taeyong sat alone, writing in a journal Sunmi had given him to record his thoughts. He wrote about the crash, about his rescue, about what he had learned of the Confederation, and he wrote about what might come next. A future where humans joined the community of stars not because of their technology or their resources, but because of something inside them that even they didn't fully understand. On the last page, he wrote, "They thought no one could survive the crash until they saw the human. Now they're beginning to understand what we've always known. Our greatest strength isn't in our muscles or bones or technology. It's in our unwillingness to give up, our drive to keep going when all logic says we should stop, our willingness to risk everything for what we believe is right. They call it remarkable. We just call it being human." 6 months later, as Taeyong stood before the full Confederation Council, fully healed and dressed in a formal uniform that marked him as Earth's first official representative, he remembered those words. The grand chamber was filled with beings from 100 different worlds, all watching him with curiosity and, yes, respect. "Engineer Taeyong of Earth," announced the council leader, a being of pure energy contained in a crystalline form. "You stand before us as living proof that appearances can be deceiving. Your species may seem fragile, but you possess a strength that cannot be measured by our usual standards." Taeyong stepped forward. "Thank you," he said simply. "On behalf of all humans, I look forward to showing you what else we can do." As applause filled the chamber, expressed in countless alien ways, from clicking mandibles to flashing lights, Taeyong smiled. The journey ahead would be challenging, but if there was one thing humans were good at, it was facing challenges. The stars had never seemed more welcoming. End of "They thought no one could survive the crash until they saw the human." HFY Sci-Fi short story.